Ooh, what's this? The Nintendo Switch has now surpassed the average console lifespan. The system will be receiving its respective 3D Zelda title very soon, and most of the games that are coming out or just came out for the system consist of remasters or very play-safe releases. You know what that means, ladies and gentlemen. The announcement and release of the next generation Nintendo system isn't so far off now, and you know what? I'm honestly a bit worried about it. You see, what makes me worried about the Nintendo Switch's successor is a variety of different concerns that I have for it, with my primary concern being Nintendo's current mentality, and how the way they're running their company right now may end up affecting how their next-gen system performs. Now, I'm sure some of you are probably going, oh, but Nintendo made the Switch super successful. I'm sure whatever system they're cooking up next will be a big success. And while I do agree with you to some extent on that, I'll get into why that is later, that first part is what mainly concerns me, about the Switch being a big success. Throughout video game history, there have been many occasions where big gaming companies achieve massive success from a video game system selling tremendously well, only for them to lose all of that success and go back to the bottom when they release their next system afterwards. And the blame is always on them for making really dumb decisions that they didn't see or thought of in hindsight, because they presume people would just naturally buy the next new system because the last one did so well. It happened with Sony with the PlayStation 3 after the success of the PS1 and especially PS2. It happened with Microsoft with the Xbox One after the success of the Xbox 360. Hell, it technically already did happen with Nintendo, more than once. N64 from NES and SNES, Wii U from Wii, 3DS from DS, all of this just sort of waves a red flag that Nintendo may fumble it when it comes to how they handle their next-gen system. It especially doesn't help that Nintendo is already making pretty dumb and anti-consumer moves, whether it be how they handle their paid online service, or refusal to address any serious complaints about their hardware, and of course the infamous subject about how they handle their free post-launch updates with some of their games. It's basically all gone to a point now where even the most casual or biggest fans of Nintendo are starting to make the oh so shocking realization that Nintendo may not be so perfect and actually has flaws like any other gaming company. Biggest surprise of the century, I know. And I can't help but feel like if Nintendo doesn't do anything to resolve these issues or continue to make them even worse, it's going to be a difficult sell when the time comes to tell people to buy the successor system. That's just my primary concern, but I do have a handful of other concerns in the back of my head. First off, graphical power. Now look, I myself am not a huge stickler when it comes to graphics. Personally, as long as a game runs at a stable frame rate, preferably 60, then I am content, but I do think the Switch's successor should see a big upgrade in terms of the graphical power, just so it would appeal to third-party developers enough to still make games on Nintendo's next-gen system. Personally, I think third-party titles can play a big role in my enjoyment on a Nintendo platform. I wouldn't say it's a necessary thing to have. My favorite Nintendo system of all time is the 3DS, and it didn't have the best third-party support in the world, but third-party is always something that is welcoming to have. Whether it be a third-party developer making an exclusive title for the system, making a port that utilizes the Nintendo platform's unique gimmick, or just simply releasing a game on a Nintendo platform on the same day as the other versions of the game, it's just nice to have more games on a platform. Hell, just look at the Nintendo Switch to prove my case. Third-party titles have absolutely played a big role when it came to my enjoyment with the Nintendo Switch. Being able to play select third-party titles on the go and on the TV as well to some extent makes me absolutely adore this system to bits. There was a period of time where if a third-party game was releasing on consoles and if there was a Nintendo Switch version of it, I was going to get the Switch version without question. Admittedly, as of recently, I have stopped doing this, mostly because the compromises just to get certain games to even run on the Switch have gotten too severe for me to want to get the Switch version as opposed to a version of that game on a more powerful system. It was around the time when Sonic Frontiers and the Cosmic Shake released when I made that decision, but the third-party games that I did get on the Switch were legitimately amazing. The fact that you can play The Witcher 3 on a $200 device that weighs less than a PlayStation 5 controller honestly blows my mind, and I'm just worried that we'll lose all of that amazing third-party support if the Switch's successor doesn't get a somewhat substantial graphical boost. I'm also a bit worried about which gimmick the Switch's successor is going to have. Nintendo always likes to add some sort of gimmick with their game systems in order to make the experience more interesting. Some gimmicks work pretty well, like the Switch's hybrid scheme or the DS's clamshell touchscreen design, but of course not every one of their gimmicks is going to stick the landing. Some of them landed with pretty mixed results, such as the 3DS's 3D feature, and some gimmicks just flat out hindered the gameplay experience, such as the Wii U's gamepad controller. So this makes me worried as to whether or not the new gimmick of the Switch's successor will be a gimmick that enhances the experience or make it worse. But what makes me even more worried is the possibility of any new gimmick at all. Because here's the thing, the Nintendo Switch's hybrid design is a gimmick of massive convenience, and it worked out incredibly well and is loved by many people who own a Switch. So if Nintendo decides to make a gimmick for the new system that challenges that hybrid scheme, or just flat out ditches it altogether to make a dedicated handheld, dedicated home console, or both, then some people are going to be really hesitant to want to get Nintendo's next-gen system. I see people online who said that they will not be interested or be flat out disappointed if the Switch's successor doesn't retain that hybrid scheme. Of course, this isn't a problem with me personally. As somebody who loves Nintendo, I'll always follow them wherever they decide to go, but I do fear that introducing a new gimmick in the Switch's successor that would make it lose its hybrid scheme may end up losing consumers who originally bought a Switch. And it may lose even more if the gimmick ends up being a really dumb one. Although even with my worries and concerns, I still think Nintendo will be alright when it comes to the Switch's successor. Remember around the beginning of the video where I said that Nintendo becoming really successful may be a detriment to how they will go win with the Switch's successor system, while Nintendo being really successful is also just an overall good thing. Because if the Nintendo Switch's successor system ends up becoming a financial disappointment or failure to them, then they can mostly afford to take the hit. Of course, this doesn't actually mean I want it to happen. Why would I want it to happen? But if it does, I think Nintendo would be fine and won't be in too much financial ruin, especially since we'll probably not see another massive failure like the Wii U ever again anytime soon. The Switch acted as a big gateway for many returning Nintendo fans who haven't bought a Nintendo system in a very long time prior to the Switch, as well as a gateway for new Nintendo fans. Because people who bought the Switch who weren't already big fans of the company or gaming in general bought it to check out all of the high quality games people were playing on it. It isn't like the Wii's success, where most of the people who bought that system consisted of old farts and casual families who bought it to only play Wii Sports, Wii Fit, and maybe like at most 3 Mario games before never really using it again, and mainly bought it for its motion control gimmick. The Switch isn't like that. If you bought a Switch, you bought it for the games. This means that for better or for worse, the Nintendo community is now bigger than it arguably ever was before. So if the Switch's successor ends up becoming another system like the Wii U, where it has awful third-party support and it is only notable for the first-party games it has, it'll probably still do better than the Wii U because of how there are now more people who are fans of the company. The final thing worth noting is that it feels like even Nintendo themselves are aware of my worries and concerns, and even share them to some extent. I specifically remember reading this Kotaku article from 2 years ago, where Nintendo's current head of leadership, Shuntaro Furukawa, was talking about the Switch's lifespan at that time. However, in that article, he said some things that slightly released me from my concerns that I have about Nintendo repeating the same mistakes when it comes to the Switch's success. Currently, the Switch's sales are exceedingly favorable, and achievements are also good, but I have zero peace in mind. In the entertainment business, people someday do lose interest. Up until now, we have repeatedly had the experience of our business taking a nosedive. Because of this, I myself as well as those within the company do not at all think that the current state of affairs will keep going and going. You must give new customers fresh surprises, and our existence can slip into obscurity at any time. I always have this kind of sense of crisis. Now look, I understand why some people don't like Furukawa so much. It is annoying how he still allows the aforementioned anti-consumer practices to keep going with his company, and he also just doesn't have the same charisma or charm as Nintendo's former president Satoru Iwata. But what he said here is incredibly wise of him, and at the very least, he is aware that letting the Switch's success get the best of him can and will lead to Nintendo going down yet another downfall, and he is presumably trying his best to not let that happen when the Switch's successor releases. Whether or not he will stick to what he said remains to be seen, but it is great to see that he is aware of a downfall that often happens with game companies. So yeah, kudos to you for that, Furukawa. But seriously though, stop it with the free post-launch updates for games that are lacking in content and launch. Just make them already filled with content when you release them. I want to believe that it isn't so hard to do that. Anyways, yeah, that's pretty much everything I have to say on the topic. Like I said, I think Nintendo will probably be fine when their next generation system comes out. I just wanted to express my concerns, and I thought making a video on this topic would be fun. Anyways, yeah, that's kind of it really. I don't have a good way to end the video, so I'll probably play a funny video on screen or something. I don't know. I'll put something funny on screen to end the video.
Smile if you like dick.